So, I don't have as good of a welcome as we just got right before me, but I am very excited to be here. It's obligatory. I'm American. I have to say I'm very excited to be here. But honestly, this is an interesting topic. I've been talking about this for about 4 or 5 years now, and I want to take you with me for about 30 minutes about what it means to actually be noticed and seen. I'm very, very more of a shy person, and I've had to learn how to do this. So if I can do it, you all can do it. And I want to help you out, especially now, based on how the economy ebbs and flows. It's important that you are never out of sight or out of mind from your next position or the next opportunity that you've got to share your talent with the world. I want you all to promise me something, that we're going to assume you all know what you're doing, okay? Let's start there. You guys are fantastic developers. I'd hire any one of you to be on my team. But how do we find you? What does it normally look like in the beginning? Well, when I have to look for a job, usually I have to put something together that kind of looks like this, right? A little information blurb. It says that I love object-oriented programming. I've done C# for about 12 years. I love working on big projects, etc. The problem is there's a lot of words here. And the way the human brain works is that it just looks like a blob. That's exactly why there is AI tricks to help recruiters, because they honestly can't read every single line you put in your resume. If we were to be memorable, nobody will say this word for word about me. They would say something like, I am very innovative, or I work a lot in the enterprise space, or I'm consumer-facing, because I've done a lot of that, or that I'm a speaker. These are the things that usually people will say in passing, not that highly detailed list, that 5-page resume. This is about the impression the humans have of you. We are the hardest algorithm to crack. But there is science to back up what's going on here. Often there's just too much detail provided online, and that can be a big challenge. My clicker's not working. Nope. Nope. That's okay. I will just stand here with you all. We're going to talk about how to strengthen your impression when you're interested in finding a job or being promoted at your job. We don't want to stick out for the wrong reasons, right? Like a sore thumb or a black sheep. We want to instead be enticing and not uncomfortable. But like it or not, everyone has a brand. Do you know you have a brand? Yes. I'm not in marketing. I'm not even going to pretend. But there is an actual... You got it? Got it. I'm not going to pretend. But there is an impression that you're going to give. You can shape that and change it, especially when it's nothing. People don't know who you are. Why would they know who you are? Again, I come from a background where I'm very shy, very introverted, and I've managed to kind of negotiate things around this. Maybe eventually that'll come back. Yes? No? Yay! All right. So, let's start with this question. Why would anybody else get promoted before you, right? If you're too busy keeping your head down and your nose to the grindstone, it makes it very difficult to advocate for you. Part of managing yourself and your trajectory in your job at your current employer, and maybe even beyond in your career, it means to make it easier for people to find you. If you get coy or bashful about the accomplishments you've done, it does both yourself and others a disservice, because they don't actually know they can come to you for help with something. It may unintentionally make the job of managing you harder. So, why does the idiot get all the responsibility? This is a difficult one because you'll probably never say that out loud, or maybe you will because you're bold. But you worked your butt off, and you have been at a company for a long time, and yet someone else gets promoted over you. Maybe they have more experience, less experience, but at the very least, they seriously don't know what they're doing, in your opinion. Why did this happen? Because being visible is not just about doing a good job. It is about how you communicate that you did a good job and how you made others feel when you were doing it. And if any part of that was negative and somebody else's was positive, that might be why they get promoted. And you think, that's not fair, Heather. This sucks. Yep, but it's real. So how do we avoid these situations? You can't avoid everything. Not everything's up to you. But you need to learn a lesson from the idiot. The idiot was probably shamelessly self-promoting very loudly, right? And so maybe you should too, only you don't have to lose your self-respect in the process. There are good ways to do it. Have you ever heard the phrase, sent does not mean received? Yes? It's very profound when it comes to human communication. Half of your job is to be awesome devs and ship the code. The other half of your job is communicating to people that you shipped the code. And maybe what you should do in the future, and not just, okay, give me an assignment and I will go build it. Maybe vocalize, hey, could I be a part of the next planning session to think whether or not we should build this or should do this, even if you're not the architect. Then people start realizing your thought processes. You will instantaneously get more credibility because you asked to be part of the decision. Even if they say no, you're definitely going to stick out. But remember, if you do awesome things and I don't hear about it as your manager, how do I know what's going on? You think, well, you should just check everything in my nice little done Jira board or my GitHub board, right? But remote work has made this incredibly hard to manage. There's just so much going on. Has anybody here been a manager before? Oh, no, yes, a couple of you. That process is exhausting. It doesn't mean we don't care. It means our brains can only handle so much. So make it easier for us. Basically, do things and tell people. That's it. That's the whole keynote. No, I'm just kidding. But we do miss out when we wrongly assume that other people will know about our great work. So remember, you are almost always on your mind, but almost never on anyone else's. So it may seem excessive to you to put out that you've done something today and put out that you've done something tomorrow, or that you're interested in something, and it may seem like a lot of noise, but probably the human that needs to hear it will cherry pick which of those messages they actually get, because either they were busy or they just didn't see it until right now. So sometimes you need to put it out more than one way, more than once. A good way to do that, if you don't really get like the stage in your company, is to do some external work. I'll tell you a little quick story. I worked at a company where I was really, really, really interested in doing some voice work. So like Alexa, Google Assistant, Siri, that kind of stuff. But I wasn't ever put on a project that did any of that stuff because we didn't have that as something that was sold, okay? So I just played on my own and I blogged about it. Fast forward to about 8 months later, I got called into our CTO's office who said, hey, I was talking to one of our clients who's really interested in this newfangled thing called voice assistants. And I stumbled on your blog. It was like the 3rd result in Google. And I'm like, that's cool. He's like, yeah, do you want to work on this? And I'm like, really? I had never actually worked on a project. I had just done something on my own. I had never gotten paid for that. But because he really liked the way I had approached the architecture, I got pulled in. Because I didn't need to wait until be given a chance at my job. I just decided to explore it and tell people that I was interested in it, and this is what I had discovered when I played. That still blew my mind, because I didn't directly have to advocate. It was like an indirect advocation. I got to just put things out there, and then the stars align. Not always. Sometimes there's just a lot of people who are doing mobile apps out there, and maybe you might be result number 285. But the point is that you are publicly sharing something you've discovered. Don't be afraid to be the Alice in the Wonderland and not really know where you're going, but share where you've just been. That's okay. No one's asking for you to be the expert. Just share the things you discovered when you're playing around with the project. Because we all know that working hard and doing a good job is insufficient to being the one that people pick, the one that is the visible choice. You will get well paid if you work hard and do a good job. You'll get to keep your job most of the time, unless there's restructuring, which happens. That also is not a reflection on your talents. You just may not get promoted all that far unless people outside of your immediate group know what you're doing. These are just things that I've learned in every company I've been in. Which is why you should network. Right now you work at a company, or maybe you run your own, but maybe in 10 years you won't. Maybe you'll move to another part of the world and have to get a different job. Maybe you should start reaching out to other developers in other places and just ask them what they think about, I don't know, the latest version of Kotlin. Just start the process very naturally. It doesn't have to be forced. If you have no idea how to do an icebreaker, come find me after the keynote, and I'm happy to give you a list of about 10 of what you can ask to somebody that you don't know. There's so many reasons to network. Right now, there are tons of developers looking for new work because there have been rounds of layoffs in the United States. But they're also slowing down. What I've noticed is that the developers that had already reached out ahead of time, years before, their network rallied around them and made referrals to each other to get them a position. That is so powerful. If nobody knows you, how are they supposed to know that you also want a position somewhere? You have to start connecting the dots. This event is perfect for that. At every conference, I try to meet at least 5 people I've never met before. Maybe I never speak to any of them again, but maybe I do. And maybe in a few years, that person remembers that they talked to me at DDD Perth and then says, hey, I'm working on this project. I'm going to recommend you to my architect. And that is how it really works. And many of you may know that, but there's a ton of you who don't. So this is a reminder to those who do and those who haven't tried it yet. Having a large and valuable network is crucial. It is everything in your career because jobs will come and go, but your developer network can last you decades. When I saw the word network, it doesn't really mean what you think it means when I first saw it. I thought it was definitely something outside of a recruiting event. When most programmers ask me about networking, what they're really asking me is how to use people to get what they want. I mean, that's honest, right? It's not about that at all, though. In fact, my personal philosophy, and one I firmly believe you have to have for true success, is to figure out how you can give as many people as possible what they want, or better, what they need. If you see something that someone could benefit from, maybe connecting them with another person that is an expert in that subject because they're struggling. You start by giving, not by asking and taking. When you do it that way, you also set yourself up for a lot of really good karma because people will recognize you as somebody who, even though you didn't work with them at your job, was always willing to help. And that gives you a great reputation amongst a lot of people. I can tell you the wrong way to network. You see, we only worry about this when we're trying to find a new job. But that's the worst time, because building a network takes time. You can't rush this process. If you do it quickly and say, oh my God, I need a job right now because I just can't seem to find anything and things are so hard, people will rally around you and try and help because they have sympathy, but they can't really speak for you. They can't really say, I know that I've seen this person do this blog post or speak at this event or help this person who is not even at their job understand this part of an algorithm. and just gave. You need to have those kinds of people speak for you. You have to get involved and not just say, okay, now I need help. The right way to network is to build the relationship a little slowly. I mean, if we were on a date and we just met and you asked me to marry you, maybe I'd say yes, but why would I say yes? That doesn't make a lot of sense. It's just like romantic relationships. Friendships and business relationships are obviously a little bit farther away from you and your family. But networking that I'm talking about is going to follow you around. This is a big, small world. You're going to notice the same people here and there as you traverse your career. So try networking in person. You all get a gold star, you're here today. And if you're online, come here someday and try and reach people in person. There's something about the impression on the human brain when you are face-to-face, because there's so much more communicating that is done with in-person events. Even if you can't travel all the way across the world, like I had to do to this one, go very locally. I bet you there's probably somebody technical within 100 kilometers of you. I'm sure it's difficult to find it at first, but just start asking around, start asking here. The easiest and best thing to do in this case is to find groups of people who are interested in what you're in. You can do meetup.com, you can do Reddit, you can do lots of different software development conferences. Some are expensive, some are totally free. This is the beginning of how you continue your career. But let's say you want to reach people on another side of the planet and you can't network in person. That's where this one comes in. Regardless of your personal opinion about social media, it is necessary to be visible as a developer in this day and age. That doesn't mean you have to spend every waking moment on it. There's ways to automate that too, but you do need to at least be found somewhere online. And when you're there, just be yourself. And I say be yourself, meaning be your intentionally good self. We all have bad days, so be honest about the days that you have, but think about the purpose of why you are posting online, why you are recording a video. What is this for? Is it to make you just feel better, or is it to reach a certain group of people? So if all you ever do is complain about the naming conventions that Microsoft has in .NET every time, that may be true, but it's also not helpful to you. You're just presenting a lot of problems and not a lot of solutions. And what are we? We're developers. We solve things. It's okay to bring the problem, but bring a solution as to how you would do it differently. Then people can start to see the way you think, and you will start to get more people following your philosophy that really identify with that. Aspirational is great, but being relatable is really what creates connections. So if you struggle with something, please share it, and then share how you got past it, because that's what's really valuable to me. I definitely have struggled with understanding, what do I do next? So I kind of looked at the people that I admired and I'd followed, and they weren't super famous. Some of them were just a couple of developers that were in my neighborhood. But I appreciated that they shared how they got past something difficult. Try to be that for others. Even right where you are, even if you're a junior dev. Say, wow, this is what it was like my first year as a junior developer. Oh my gosh. But now, I promise it gets better. That's somebody I would want to follow. You have to post with purpose, speak like a human, and remember, if you're not online, you are out of sight. We're talking about being visible, right? You guys are already awesome. You're already great at being a developer, but I need to see you. Why leave your career in the hands of someone else to do the work for you, to advocate for you? Why? There's so many of us. That's a lot to expect of anybody. Take control of at least having crafted a persona, an image of who you are, so people get a sense of what it might be like to work with you. And if you're like me and you don't want to post on social media every day, you can automate your online thought stream. I have moments of brilliant genius So we all do. And then I have lots of writer's block where I know absolutely nothing to say. I don't have anything valuable to add, and I say nothing for like 3 months. That's terrible. So the way that I've managed this is that I will keep things together as I have brilliant sessions of thought as to different posts that could be done, and I schedule them. There are several different platforms that do this, and they will schedule posts for you. And that way it'll feel more like a cadence, but you won't feel like you have to be awake at 6 in the morning every day in order to make sure that people still remember who you are. You don't have to. You can automate this and live your life. I don't know why I have to say this, but an awful lot of developers who've come to me for help seem to need this piece of advice. Make sure you have a website that works, that has all the things you've done on it, not just like a resume, but more like a conversational piece, like, hey, I've done these kinds of things, that kind of thing, and this is what I would like to do. This is what I'm available to do. And have that be a site. Because sometimes it's difficult with different kinds of social media platforms changing for a recruiter or a lead architect to try to find you online. So make sure you have one place for all of what is awesome about you, but also make sure that you're still feeding in a little bit here, there on LinkedIn, et cetera. Well, I wanted to know who these well-known developers were and how they got here. What are these habits that they have? I'm sure a lot of you have probably followed a couple of developers online that seem to just have it all together and know exactly how to solve a problem. And that's why they have a YouTube channel. That's why they've got huge amounts of posts on dev.to. But the good news is, becoming like a super developer, a super employee that everybody wants to follow is not some sort of rarefied secret. It's a combination of skill set and mindset that you can begin to develop for yourself by focusing on some habits. They pay attention to what other people value. They, at their job, would pay attention to what their supervisors value and what their managers value and their managers' managers value. I always ask, what would need to happen in 12 months for you to be really happy with a scenario? And they're always like, well, let me think about this. And then it forces them into thinking about what would be the ideal positive end goal, not just the grind. I don't know, we just got to keep shipping code until we die, you know. You got to ask them, what would it take for you to be happy? And then work backwards from there, because maybe what's important to you is not what's important to them. My example here is that I am terrible at being on time, but that was almost the only thing that my manager valued, and it was difficult to ever really have positive one-on-ones with them, you know, because I actually did ship all the code. I brought a lot to the table, but it always irritated him that he wasn't exactly sure when I was going to show up for stand-up. And that's on me, right? I've always been this way, and I've had to work on it. So the funny thing was I did nothing different with the rest of what I was doing in code. I just made sure that I set my alarm at least an hour earlier, and I started showing up early. And after 4 days, he was like, oh my gosh, I noticed such an improvement in your performance. I'm like, why, thank you. And then we had no problems ever again, because all it was a value mismatch. And you think, well, they should value what I ship. Yeah, but it was kind of like a given. Everybody on my team was talented. So in a way, it was normal. It didn't make me stick out. But to them, me just finding out what they valued and giving them what they valued first in my priorities, we had so much less friction, and it just kind of worked. These developers choose the right place for their talents, and this one's hard. It's hard to be a super employee if the company's needs are very different from your abilities, talents, and values. In a report about 2015, I think, the Cicero Group found that one of the most important factors in employees consistently producing great work was recognition. But I can tell you that I definitely have gotten not that much recognition in some of my jobs. Anybody here have the same problem? Yes. 37% of respondents said that being recognized by a manager or by the company was the most important driver to work, even above a raise, although I think all of us would like a raise. So choosing where you work and how your work is valued is very important. If you're not at the right place, leave. There is a job for you. And because you've been networking, tell your network that you're looking, and they will help. Give referrals because you've already shared your talents with them outside your job, right? Right. These people are focused on the big picture thinking. I can't even tell you how much I rolled my eyes at this statement, but it is true that exceptional performers are able to maintain dual focus. You can be very detailed, but you also understand how your piece of the puzzle fits into the big picture. And if you don't know that, start asking. Sometimes they don't know either. And then you can just keep asking. Leaders want people who are visionary. They want people who are asking the questions. Sometimes you're at a bad company or you have a bad manager, but there's a lot of really good ones too. And if you just start asking, well, what is the ultimate goal here? What if I don't build this puzzle piece, I build that puzzle piece, and it gets you to this goal faster? Shows that you have creativity and you're paying attention to what is valued. This one. They are uncomfortable with being uncomfortable. And I felt like this was not me. I wanted everything to feel all right all the time. That is my nature. But the data is clear because you have to be working on things that are difficult for you. And something I famously say is that if it scares me, I have to run towards it. Which for me was, I want to go snorkeling in Australia, but I'm terrified of water and swimming. However, I'm going to Australia in 6 months, so that is what I got lessons for. And I was thrilled to be able to have actually done that, but it was a big pull for me. Terrified of it. But after doing it, I felt so proud of myself, and I recognized that it was a big lift, but how much more I got to do now. Now I could go anywhere in the world and I could go snorkeling. And that's going to be the same for you, getting over putting your mind around large language models, putting your mind around something that you feel you want to do but you don't feel skilled to do. You have to push through it and recognize that if it makes you uncomfortable, maybe that thing is the very thing you should learn, so you're no longer uncomfortable with it. Even if you are distraction-free and getting a lot of coding hours in, if you're just building the same really simple app or API over and over again, that is not necessarily stretching the boundaries of your brain. But it's also not your job's responsibility for you to do that. That's your responsibility. So you either ask to be put on different projects to try, or start doing things outside of work just a little bit, like maybe an hour. Just an hour out of your week and try something new that has nothing to do with your current architecture. It will hugely stretch what you're doing, and other people notice when you're doing these things. This is one of my favorite quotes ever by Simon Sinek. Every person needs to be seen, understood, and validated, or appreciated, I guess. You can dismiss someone who disagrees with you, or you can try to figure out why they say what they say and do what they do, because you want to be the first one in their head when they're doing a new project, or the first one in their head when they're trying to promote someone. How do you get there? You have to figure out how to empathize with them, even the people that you don't really like. And that is difficult. But that's how you become a trusted voice. If you can empathize and let somebody feel seen and heard and understood, even if they were above you and not just your peer, this is the key. Schmoozing is a turnoff. I don't like it. It's not real. But instead, as you demonstrate leadership, you should positively start interacting with people and reflect where they are in their life. Has anybody ever seen this quadrant before? Yay! A couple of them. This is a wonderful graphic from a book called Radical Candor by Kim Scott. And basically this means if you do this for them, you have to be willing to encourage them to do this for you. Okay? Let's start with ruinous empathy. There's a wonderful television show called Friends. I don't know if anybody heard of it. And there was an episode where one character was trying to play the piano or sing. Can't remember which. And their friend was like, "You sound amazing." They did not. They were not amazing. They were off key. It was not great. But they wanted to just so be encouraging. They're like, "You're amazing. You should hold a concert. This is fantastic. I love it." So they did. They scheduled a concert, and they felt really frustrated as they went through it, and people would get up and leave because they just weren't a very good singer. That sucks. How can I correlate this to being a developer? Oh, I know. Hello, junior dev. Hello, mid-level dev. You're going to be amazing at this really complicated, convoluted thing we're building that you've never done before, but I know it's going to be great, and then just leave the room. That's how you set them up for failure, because you just tell them they can do it, but not how to do it. You're not really helping. You're just kind of trying to empathize, but really you're setting them up for failure without support. Then there's manipulative insincerity. I'm sure at some point in your life, you'll have somebody that you work for say, "Hi, I just want to chat with you. We're just going to write down a couple of things that happened the other day. It's no big deal. I want you to just sign this whenever you're done, but it's no big deal." Don't do it. They're just trying to manipulate you into something that will make it easier to get rid of you. They're not actually caring about if you're doing well in your job. They don't care about you as a person. They just want to do their job easier, and maybe you're in their way. But they can't look like a bully, because now we all have lots of educational guides that tell us we can't do that as a manager. So instead, we're going to manipulate you into thinking we care. As you grow in your career and you start to have people to report to you, please don't do this. If there's a problem, try going in much earlier when it's still very small. It's microscopic, and then avoid this whole problem entirely. There's obnoxious aggression. I could go into a long explanation of this, but all I have to really say is Stack Overflow. It's not very helpful, is it, just to yell at people and tell them that they're dumb? That's just being aggressive. That's not being honest with someone. That's just being obnoxious. That doesn't work either. So how do we get to radical candor? So what does that mean? You have to set a baseline of trust. And the truth is valuable coming from someone who actually cares. You have to earn the right to give feedback, and they have to earn the right to give it to you. You cannot engage with a human only when a correction is needed. And you can't engage with your manager only when you need something. Oh, I have to talk to my manager more? Don't like that. They're busy. They are. But talk to them about things you've done or where you've been going and how you can help. That's not you needing something. That's not you having a problem. That's you offering. Because why would I trust what you have to say? You didn't take the time to get to know me at all and understand where I'm coming from, so why would I listen? I wouldn't. Read this book. It's really fantastic. You have to truly open connection with other people in order for this to work. I put together a little graphic that I did myself, so nobody judge me, please. If you learn why someone is behaving the way they are, then you can generate empathy. If they feel heard, then they feel safe with you. And then they'll develop trust with you. Because with trust comes the ability to be radically candid with them and have feedback and learnings in that moment that you don't take as an injury to yourself personally. It just becomes about how to move forward. And then through that, increases your ability because you're not worried about what other people think of you anymore, because you have that safety and trust with the people you're working with, which means you can create a habit to where you don't even think about it anymore, and then that generates more empathy. It's like this connection force multiplier loop, very scientific. People will forget what you said, forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. So while you need to be visible, you also need to be memorable. And this is the way you do that. To become visible, you have to show others that you see them first. You share what you've done very often. And you have to inspire by example, by putting your stuff out there and listening to what others have. then you become a visible, memorable developer in your own right, on top of all the awesome code that you do. Give people a reason to not forget you, and they will not forget you. It's okay to stand out in a monochromatic world. It feels awkward at first, but you want to be the one that stands out because you'll be the one that will be given the opportunity first. I believe each one of you can do this, not because I believe, it's not some ruinous empathy here, but because I did, and I was absolutely nobody in a position where I didn't start coding until I was 27, and here I am. And if I can do this, you can do this. Don't hide your talent. Share it with us. Make sure you spend time meeting at least 5 people during this conference and connect with them afterwards. Thank you.